get into 2021 fast enough, and we appreciate you being with us today. We know it's a holiday week. Honestly, we weren't sure how many people were going to even be online and joining the webinar. We've got a smaller group than what we normally do, so I'm going to ask a question in just a minute. Let me sort of get us started here with a couple of thoughts. So I'm Patrick Brady, your normal host, and today what we planned was to have Dr. Owen, our CEO, revisit from 2 weeks ago what's happened from then to now, and also to reacquaint us with what's going on with the vaccine, because there's been a lot that's been discussed, and now we know things are getting into the system here in the US to get people vaccinated, which is great. So this can be a short session, or we can certainly take our normal 30 minutes, and we are happy to do that. But I think the key is with a smaller group, we would much rather this be a conversation with you, because I think you all have different things on your minds, but you all certainly have the same outcomes that you're trying to prepare for within your company. So if we can make it a good ongoing dialogue, great. Let me see if I can get us started. If it looks like everybody just wants to sit back and let Dr. Owen go through his thoughts, we certainly are prepared to do that as well. So with that, let me go to normal direction on the chat. So jump in, let us know kind of what's on your mind, what's pressing, what you're concerned about, what you're confused about. If you've read some things that haven't made a lot of sense, let me see what kind of reaction we get to that, and then we'll sort of guide and help Dr. Owen know where to focus his time and effort. If you're on the phone, I do see some people that have dialed in. You're going to have to hit *6 to come off of mute and share your question with us. Normally, I typically say go to tryondirect.com if you need to interact with us. Anything that we don't cover in this webinar, we are happy to do that outside of this session. So let me see what we got here, Dr. Owen, to get us started.
I see the first comment. That's a big one, and that is really involved in a couple of these slides in a minute.
Yep. Okay. So Patricia, we will definitely get to those. Very good question. Let me just keep it going here for a minute and see who else wants to jump in with thoughts or questions.
And one of the other things I can do, Patrick, is go through the slides real quickly, hit the high points for everybody, and then talk more in depth about the vaccines and what we know.
Yes.
Yes. What we're seeing, and who shouldn't be vaccinated. We can talk about women who are pregnant, breastfeeding. We can talk about people who have had COVID-19 previously. When should they be vaccinated? All types of things. So.
All right, so we got a couple other thoughts on here. Let's see if we can summarize these real quick. So we're
UK variant.
We're on the compliance topic. How do you get people to take it seriously, adhere to protocols? The UK variant question we anticipated. Dr. Owen has a slide on that, so we definitely will talk about that. And oh, very good from Tom. So timing on getting group 1 vaccinated, and you all know there's a 1A and a 1B, and then opening it up to group 2. And then lastly, Dr. Owen is talking about a pharmacy. Can employers request vaccination records? Okay. I think I may be able to cover part of that one, Dr. Owen.
I can take care of the Bell's palsy one too. I can
yes.
take care of the filler injections. Remind me to cover that along with Bell's palsy.
Okay.
And I can take care of the anaphylactic reactions, all of those things. Okay.
Okay. All right. Great. That's a lot of good feedback. So we appreciate that. And I think that can
estimate timing of getting group 1 vaccinated, opening up to group 2. Yeah, any info on this UK variant? Okay, good. I'm good. All right. Let's get on our
with that
going. Next slide, please, Kendall. All right, so here are the data points on US cases. Not any big surprise. Let's see, I need to move that off because not any big surprise that we're seeing a little bit of a downturn in new reported cases. During the Christmas holiday, you'll see a little dip that we saw also during the Thanksgiving holiday. I don't think we're going to know what we've really got until we see whether or not we essentially created super spreader events all over the nation from Christmas. Talked to all kinds of people, including Patrick today, about how they juggled family and so forth. And everybody had a unique way of doing it. So I really think that data we see right now is not going to tell us very much. It's going to be another week to 10 days before we know exactly what really happened. Next slide. Mecklenburg County is now in the critical red. Cases are soaring in Mecklenburg County. No big surprise. Highest populous area. Percent positive is still more than 10%. We're running right now about 10 to 11% of our total tested people are positive. I will tell you this: we had a run of was it 24 out of 30 were positive that came in that needed point of care testing immediately with significant symptoms. We've had, it's time to get serious, folks. I mean, for those who didn't believe it was real or any big deal, they don't know anybody and so forth. We sent, I think it was 3 people to the hospital last week from clinic. 2 are still in the ICU. So it is a big deal. Cases, you know, across the state of North Carolina, pretty significant. Deaths have increased dramatically. Hospitalized, still a big deal. We are not quite close to overwhelming our hospital systems yet, but I am really concerned about the next 2 weeks to 3 weeks. That's going to be our, probably, I think, going to be our peak. I'm guessing that. Might be a week later than that, but I think that that's going to be what it's going to be about after all the people gathering and so forth. Next slide. All right, the new variant. So I know you hear about it being in Britain and it's now in South Africa and so forth. Folks, it's in the US. It's already here. It's all over the world, basically. And it's just being looked for and found and so forth in the UK and such. There are numerous, maybe thousands of mutations that have already occurred in coronavirus. Some of the mutations kill the virus, right? It makes it not able to survive. Other mutations make it less likely to be contagious, and those will fall out of favor. The ones that make it more likely to be contagious will gain favor, and that's what we're seeing. So this new variant is more contagious, but not any more lethal than the others that we've seen so far. Next question should be, does the vaccine still work against it? The answer is absolutely, because the spike protein target sites for the antibodies and so forth that are developed by the vaccines will still kill the virus and will still bind to this spike protein. So we will see other mutations. We will see dozens of further mutations. Don't worry about the mutation so much unless it's more lethal, contagious, or the spike protein makes the vaccines less capable of creating the immunity we're looking for. Because remember, the vaccine is to create a specific antibody that was to kill the previous coronavirus spike protein. But if we have a new spike protein that no longer allows that antibody to bind to it, then it will render that antibody ineffective and create a problem with vaccines or any other type of immunity that we may develop. Even if you've had the virus previously, you may not have the antibody if a new spike protein develops that renders previous antibodies incapable of destroying a new variant, then we've got an issue, which is essentially what happens with a lot of flu viruses. So then the next question you're going to ask, which you should ask, and I'll answer it ahead of time, is, are we going to need a vaccine once a year? We don't know that yet. And the ongoing studies of each of these 70,000 or more people who are already in vaccine trials, those that have already been allowed to come to market for Pfizer and Moderna, we'll have to wait and see what that data shows us. We just have to wait and see. It's the first time we've seen this virus. So stay tuned. Literally, things are changing on a daily basis. Next slide, please. All right, so you see where the different vaccine trial updates are and so forth, where it's been approved across different nations and such. US and Canada and Europe are the ones that are approving Moderna and Pfizer. The vaccine out of Russia is being used in Argentina and in the Russian space and surrounding countries. That's about all you really need to know from this. There's other vaccines that are going to quickly come into phase 2 and 3, and we may wind up needing them. Janssen has already finished its enrollment in phase 3 that we participated in. We hope to hear something more about its efficacy in mid to late January, and hopefully applying for EUA certification at that time and get it out on the road quickly because it's only a single shot. All right, next. Well, look at this. Vaccinations administered by state. How many would have thought that there would have been more people vaccinated than 1% by now? That would be out of 300, let's say 330 million people. That would be at least 3.3 million people. We're not even close to that yet. We're about half of that, maybe a little over half. We've got about 11 million doses have been sent out across the country as of yesterday, and only about 2 million people vaccinated. They're way behind on how quickly they thought this vaccine was going to be not just delivered physically, but then accepted and taken by the patients. So a little bit of concern there. Next slide. All right, so this is and to me, this is the money slide. Look at this on the right. People vaccinated by demographics, by race. 80% of the people who've been vaccinated are white, Caucasian. That's not going to cut it, folks. The population and demographics that are being decimated by this disease, the African-American population, Hispanic population, and the lower socioeconomic population altogether. And you could say that, okay, well, why is this happening? Why are only 20% of the people other than Caucasian race and so forth? Is it because of where it was distributed to? No. One interesting known fact is that in many hospitals, and I won't name specific names, they've seen near 99% acceptance by physicians and less than 30% acceptance by staff. Now that is something that will never create herd immunity and will put us right back into the same position next year. We don't want to waste this opportunity with the vaccines. We got to really get everybody vaccinated. I am hoping that we will see, and I hear this from a lot of my own personal patients, folks that are reluctant to take it want to see what others are going to feel like for a while before they decide they're going to take it, even if they might classify for phase 1A or 1B. They're going to wait till most of phase 4 has completed theirs before they'll sign up, because they want to see a lot more data and so forth. So you can see the by ethnicity, the non-Hispanic group is 96% that have been vaccinated. This is a huge issue. If we don't develop herd immunity, we've got a problem. And you may have seen a report I can talk about that WBTV did and WCCB did about Atrium not sticking to the guidelines of what's 1A and vaccinating some people that really didn't have much face-to-face contact with patients who may have COVID. I think that's true, and I was initially not excited about that. But if the staff isn't taking it, that is 1A, we don't want this vaccine to go to waste. It needs to find an arm to put it in. And at that point, whoever's willing to step up and get it done, because we've got to create a momentum of people being willing to take this vaccine. Everybody can't stand on the sidelines and wait for if we all do that, then there are ways we could say what would happen, which I won't use those terminologies here, but it won't be a good situation. We're going to be right back where we were next year doing this all over again. And remember, we haven't even had wave 3 yet. The third wave should hit us in March and April. And if we're not vaccinated well enough, it's going to be worse than the first wave, not as bad as the second wave, and the economy's not going to open right, and we're still going to be in a mess. So we've got to get folks vaccinated. Next slide, please.
And Dr. Owen, let me add to what you just said, because I think you just answered the first 2 questions, which is how do you, people that haven't been affected, how do you get compliance to where it needs to be? I think you just said it. We haven't even gotten to wave 3 yet, folks. So we're nowhere near being past this. I think the emphasis of that to people, it becomes real, yes, when they see those around them that are affected, but also what Dr. Owen has talked about for many, many weeks, which is what history tells us. So what, Dr. Owen, diligence, repeated reinforcement, you've always said.
Absolutely. It's the same things. I mean, we're the food for the virus. We have to starve the virus. We have to remove ourselves from the virus getting to us. And the way we do that is separating ourselves with social distancing, wearing a face mask, washing our hands, and getting the blasted vaccine. Now, I'm in hopes that we'll be able to have a better test in the future. That could also be a game changer in this process, that will allow businesses to be able to test on the fly, all that. You know, we've just not seen any of that. Even the same day tests that we've seen so far, $30+, have to have an app. You know, that's not ease of use. We need something that's ease of use. We'll see what happens in the near future. But nothing's been developed to this date that satisfies all that. The last question I saw in the chat, can one's company insist on the vaccine to employees? My understanding is that a company can insist and can make it mandatory. I don't know how many of your employees would stay with you, which would be an interesting situation. Most healthcare groups are not doing that. We're not doing it at Tryon. And, you know, like the flu shot, you know, you have to wear a mask all the time and so forth if you don't get the flu shot and such. That's going to be a really interesting situation to see how that goes, because I'm suspicious there's going to be a lot of pushback, a lot of legal contested situations about it. Let me X out of this and go to the next slide, because I want to make sure we answer the questions and I want to go over some of the misconceptions. Okay, so here are the phases, 1A, 1B, pretty straightforward. Phase 2 or 65 and older, okay? Or you have one chronic healthcare condition, right? So that's a good number of people. Teachers, farm workers, frontline workers who don't have multiple chronic conditions. Then phase 3 are the kids, young students and athletes and so forth, essential workers. But phase 4 is 60% of the population. And that is where I think a lot of the people in phase 1 and 2 who are reluctant will show up in phase 4, hopefully, to get this vaccine and help eradicate this virus. Next slide.
And Dr. Owen, any estimate to Tom's question on how quickly we get through phase 1, 1A and 1B?
Yeah. So let's go through the questions real quick. Struggle making people taking seriously, and if they've not been personally affected, this has been going on from the very beginning. And, you know, I hate to say that people have to see somebody die from it to realize that understand that it's real, but there is a lot of that going on. I think education is the key. And, you know, having large educational forums and so forth to explain to people what's going on. I mean, I wish we could do field trips and especially take young kids, but you can't take them in the hospital to do anything, so they can't learn anything from it. So encouraging compliance is really through a lot of education and people who are willing to take the vaccine, being spokespeople for the company, and it not be the executives. You want people that are part of the foundation of a company to inspire others, to make this a grassroots from the ground up. I don't think from the top down works as well with this situation. Any info on the UK variant? We talked about that. Can you estimate timing getting group 1 vaccinated? The hope is by mid-January. I think that's a farce, and I think it'll be early February before that is completed. However, if enough people of group 1 delay their vaccine, they may blow through group 1 and move straight into group 2 just to get people vaccinated. And I would commend doing that. I would strongly recommend that if there are people who are reluctant and they're not stepping up, just keep moving to the next group until we have enough of a groundswell that the group 1s and 2s who deferred are willing to come back in. All right, a friend of mine works as a pharmacist at an independent pharmacy. Pharmacy has developed a list of people that want the vaccine. Is there a list? If so, I think you can get on the list if you're a teacher or 75 with 2 underlying conditions. Your employer should help with that. And the employer can call the Mecklenburg County Health Department or your local health department to get all the people appropriately lined up. The other thing is that your physicians should be doing this, okay? And you can make the call to your physician. What we've done at Tryon is we have created our list of the people who are the 1Bs, and we are submitting them to the health department. And you will frequently find out that the health department then calls and gets in touch with these people. We try and do the same to try and get as much of a groundswell as possible going. Can employers request vaccination records? I don't know the answer to that. I suspect not, because that's PHI that you may not be allowed to have. But I would need a legal expert to tell me that. Rumor that the vaccine has a Bell's palsy side effect. Well, there were 6 people, 3 in each study, that developed Bell's palsy. All have completely resolved. However, it was not higher than the general population that might be in that group. So we don't know if it's really a side effect or not, but we do know that some Bell's palsy also can occur after other vaccines such as flu shot and other viral vaccines. More to come, but all the people resolved and are no longer affected. Can breastfeeding women take the vaccine? Yes, and they're encouraged to do so because the antibodies cross the placenta into babies, but also into breast milk. And so then breast milk is helpful to give some immunity to young children and infants. Should pregnant women receive the vaccine? There's no data on it, but there are plenty of women who had become pregnant during the trials who received the vaccine, not placebo, but the actual vaccine. None of them have had threatened abortions. Interesting enough, though, of people who were in the trial that did not get the vaccine, several of those pregnant people have had spontaneous abortions. So I don't know that you can say much about this from a pregnancy standpoint. Fillers. There are lots of people who have had fillers, lips, face, buttocks, abdomen, you know, wherever, nose, forehead, chins, and such. It is known in the dermatology literature that certain viral infections have been associated with some swelling around where these fillers were placed. And they have seen a couple of people, I think 3 people in the entire Moderna trial and who've been vaccinated. I think no, it was all in the trial itself, where there was that type of side effect, but it was self-limiting and went away. But fillers are something you might want to talk to your dermatologist about. That would be something I would advise your employees about as well. Why do you think the vaccine has, why do people think the vaccine has fetal DNA? Oh, and here's the other one. Does it cause sterility? No, it doesn't cause sterility. As you can see, the people are getting pregnant while having taken the vaccine. It does not cause sterility. There's no chance for it to cause sterility. There's a lot of fake news out there about that. And that's why they also think it has fetal DNA and that there's microorganisms and so forth in it that send your brain waves to other places and tell you where your location is in the world, and you know, all this nanotechnology that people are afraid that Bill Gates has put in it, and all this kind of stuff. So no, that is a fallacy. Heard that if you have received a cortisone steroid in the last 6 months could help to lessen effects of COVID if you get it. Well, we know that dexamethasone helps lessen the effects of COVID when you get it. It's actually one of the treatments. So that would seem to relate to something we've seen already in one of the treatment protocols. Can one companies insist? Okay. And then how do you get on the vaccine list? Shelf life of the vaccine, more than 6 months. And variant show up on PCR testing. No, you, okay, yes, the variant will show up on regular PCR testing because of what they're testing for. It's still, yes, it still shows up on the PCR test. What it binds to and replicates has not been changed enough in any mutations to fake out the current PCR testing. Anything else?
I think that's it. Let me just say one thing, Dr. Owen, I want to let you wrap up here. The legal part, Dr. Owen rightfully deferred that, but we will try and get some legal expertise on the call next week. And if you remember 2-3 weeks ago, we had some follow-ups that we posted to our website, but I know this is unfolding and you all are trying to get your arms around it. So we will do our best to try and get some more expertise on that call for any questions in the legal area. And with that, Dr. Owen, we got a minute, and okay. Boy, you covered a lot. Appreciate that, but go ahead and bring us home here with closing thoughts.
Nowhere on planet Earth has there been a rollout of a vaccine this quickly. As a pandemic like this, nothing like this has happened before, where we've tried to bring vaccine to the citizenry of the world this rapidly. There are going to be a lot of bumps in the road. There, you can just imagine with, think of your own business and your own administration, how something can get misconstrued from one person to another. Imagine that when you're dealing with 330 to 350 million people, all who want to know the same questions. And you know, what you hear at one end of the table By the time it gets to the other end of the table, it's completely different. And so it's going to, this thing's going to morph a good bit. There have already been some mild twinkings in the guidelines. Everybody be as patient as possible. It's hard to do because a lot of people are really wanting to get this vaccine and move up in the line and so forth. We do have to go through a methodical process or we will have mayhem, right? If we just open it up and say, hey, come to Tryon, we've got the vaccine, all comers come in, there'll be a line to Myrtle Beach, okay? And we won't be able to, and then in line, people will be breaking in line, frustrated, fights, everything else. So we got to stick to some protocols to be able to do this in as orderly a manner as possible. With that, I would just say everybody be patient, don't break in line. When it's your turn, step up. This vaccine is looking for an arm to get into. And don't be surprised if you're called earlier than you think you should be because you're not thinking that the previous phase is completed. They're probably moving to the next phase because the first phase has a lot of people still sitting on the fence. And they're going to want to vaccinate the next phase so that this vaccine doesn't become problematic in getting it out. And we want to be able to create the herd immunity as soon as possible so we don't go through this mess again next year.
All right. So with that, we are at time here. So we will part and wish you all a happy new year. It'll be here at the end of the week and we'll be back together a week from Thursday. So about a week and a half from now. So we wish you the best over the holiday. Enjoy it. And we'll.
One thing. I just thought of something. What happens, I didn't answer. What happens if you've had COVID? When should you get vaccinated? The earliest is 30 days after you were diagnosed, but it's currently recommended that you wait about 90 days to get vaccinated. But yes, everybody should be vaccinated. Even if you've had COVID previously, it does boost the immunity. Sorry about that.
All right, good. Thank you for squeezing that in. And Barbara, thank you for your thoughts. Dr. Owen, appreciate, as always, your insight. We wish everybody a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining us.
Take care.